and your life.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to your Healthy Self podcast and webinar. This is your co-host and moderator, Kate Archibald, and really excited to see everybody here today. And we got some really cool stuff we're going to be diving into content-wise on peptides and what we can do to accelerate our health and just create some really cool stuff. Oh, nice. And we got our guest here is joining us. So before I introduce him, I'm going to introduce the OG Reagan Archibald, founder of East West Health, Go Wellness, and founding partner of Anodyne Pain and Wellness. And just we got some really cool stuff we're going to be diving into today. We have an amazing doctor and practitioner. Before I dive in there, just want to make sure everybody is prepared and ready. Anne's going to post this in the chat box as well. But we have our Health Accelerator challenges coming up next week. We're launching this the 1st of February. So this will be, Reagan, you said next Wednesday. It's on Tuesday next week, right?
No, it's February 3rd.
Okay, so it's February 3rd. I'm sorry.
4:30.
So February 3rd, 4:30. Make sure we've been distributing some golden tickets. So if you haven't got your ticket to that, or you'd like to learn more about it, make sure you go to the link. It's acueastwest.com/HAC, stands for Health Accelerator Challenges, or HACK for short. So make sure you go there, check that out, and get registered. It's going to be an amazing time. All right, so let's dive into our topic, and yeah, just really excited to have Dr. John Lawrence, just a really cool guy, and really excited. I'm trying to get your here it is. I'm trying to get your Reagan, do you have his bio in front of you?
Yeah,
I thought I had it right there. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
So
Dr. John.
what we're talking about today is to maximize the effects of fasting with science. Dr. John Lawrence, he's a good friend of mine. He's given us many of you have used the Zen spray. You've used the Glutamax.
Love the Zen.
The NeuroDial. You've used the Sandman, puts you right to sleep. This is the genius behind all these amazing products. He's a great doctor. So we're going to be talking about NAD, senolytics, and cell activators. And then we're going to talk to you about how you can allow for fasting, to a 3-day fast, to be as effective as a 5-day fast. So Dr. John Lawrence has been utilizing natural medicine for the last 25 years for his patients in his clinic in Florida. So welcome. Good to see you, John.
Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, Reagan. And thanks, Cade.
Sorry for butchering it. I thought I had it on my email, and then 30,000 other emails popped up at the same time, and I started fumbling. That was they got ugly there for a minute, guys. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah,
you're good.
You're
good. No, but I want to thank you again for the great day out skiing while I was out there during Christmas. It was amazing to go hit the slopes with you and your son.
That was so fun. And my son was so quiet that day, didn't talk much. And then afterwards, he's like, I really like the John guy. He's super cool. He's smart. And I was like, yeah, he's wicked smart. So yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, it was. So, we've been working hard on coming up with some protocols for fasting and around fasting. And it all started, we have a mutual friend with Ben Greenfield. Mm-hmm. And Ben and I, it's interesting. It's like his cousin, who, by the way, passed last year, unfortunately, but his cousin was my best friend, and we used to dive together. And I had been listening to Ben Greenfield, and there was something on the show that I shared with him, and he's like, "That's my cousin." I'm like, "No way." And anyway, so it kind of led to us getting introduced and becoming closer. And so he asked me to start writing for his website as a contributor. And so my first article was, I really wanted to talk about how to maximize mitochondrial function.
Mm.
And of course, you can't really do that without talking about fasting and mitophagy and autophagy. And so I started to get into this, and he kept pushing me, can you do this? Can you add this? Can you come up with a protocol here? Well, can you make it a little bit more simple here and this? And it just evolved to the point where all of a sudden we had it should be coming out pretty soon on his website, called MitoPhase, MITO, which was really based on mitochondria. And then Dr. Dan Pompa and I started to work to refine it a little bit more with some of the products involved, and we collaborated with some of his products and some of my products with some of the protocol. But then, so we've got something called Fast Track Fast. So we are in the process of building out that website, Fast Track Fast, and it's all of a sudden we've got this thing that's born that we are extremely excited about, as far as what it can do to really move the needle with people and their health. And I'd love to, get through some of the basics on this, because it's really exciting. There's a lot of nuggets throughout that you could use individually as well. But so yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
Well, let's talk about that, because well, first of all, I guess we should define some terms. And for those of you who don't know who Ben Greenfield is, he is, if you know what biohacking is, or if you consider someone who is really pushing human optimization and human performance, it's hard to find someone who's more equipped than Ben Greenfield. So, but if we talk about like autophagy and fasting, like what's the point? Like, no one likes to be hungry, so why would you want to fast and go down that road?
Yeah, well, so it kind of goes back to our ancestors and our development. And so we never did have refrigeration and the ability to have food so readily available. And so everything in life really does better when there's kind of a pulsing with it. There's a yin yang. You being in the Chinese medicine and acupuncturist could be a great person to talk about that with. Sure. But so feeding and then fasting is a part of life, and we do that every night when we go to sleep. And the body shifts gears and it does different things. And if you're constantly feeding the body, it doesn't get to do that other thing, or those other list of things, which include autophagy, mitophagy, where it's more of a cellular cleansing and recycling.
Mm-hmm.
And so autophagy is the Greek word. It means self-eating. Mitophagy is basically the same thing, but with mitochondria. So when we're in a fasting state, there's genes that they call it mTOR. And for those listening, you don't need to remember all this stuff, but just know that there's a set of genes. When they're activated, we grow new tissues. We are regenerating our body. When it's inhibiting, when mTOR is inhibited, then it's the opposite. We're recycling and we're cleaning. So because we're an organism where we're constantly replacing our old, dead and dying tissues with new ones, it's a constant turnover. That ability to be able to keep that cycle going is critical. And so we have a problem with our current civilized society where people are feeding way too much, and we need to return back to our roots, where we provide this fasting. And we can make it even stronger if we give something called senolytics. And I think, again, we need to define another term. What's a senescent cell?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to chime in on that, or do you want me to keep going?
No, I think it's fascinating. So we'll pause real quick. So mitophagy is the mitochondria that are basically being recycled. So if you think about autophagy, mitophagy, I think of it in terms of recycling, because just like, we can you can use a plastic bottle once, or you can, you know, and then recycle it. Hopefully we're all recycling, and hopefully you're not even using plastic, but it's a, you know, the nice thing about it is we do have ways of reusing things. And it's just like our body, when our cells start to break down and function, we want to recycle those. And then the mitochondria in the cell, maybe we could even talk about what that is before we jump into senescence and that kind of loss of a cellular lineage. But yeah, so let's talk about what mitochondria and why that's important.
So a third of your body weight are mitochondria, and they're constantly turning over. And this is like the oven where everything's happening. You know, it's the hot spot in the cell where, you know, the fuel is being burned, oxygen and glucose are being utilized to produce energy in the form of something called ATP. And the ATP is used to do every single thing that happens in your body. Without that, nothing works. You would be dead within seconds if you didn't have that. So that's the mitochondria. And so if you think about any engine, you know, an automobile engine or whatnot, they've got the radiators, and there's all these different things that allow the engine to perform at a level where it's not wasting gas and it's not producing too much pollution. And so those are the big concerns when it comes to your cell, is the ability for it to efficiently use fuel and to not produce too much pollution. And that pollution is called oxidation. And so this oxidation can be produced in a very excessive amount from dysfunctional mitochondria that haven't been recycled. So if we have less where we're going, it's just like the streets in our city. If we had a bunch of vehicles that were not very economical as far as fuel, you know, the gas stations would be using a lot more fuel, and we may run out of gas, and we may have problems with our atmosphere and so forth. And the same things happens in your body. And so you can imagine if you had the ability to come in and start converting all these cars to electric, you probably would have a net benefit to the function of the city. And so this is the same thing that happens when you fast and activate both mitophagy and autophagy.
Love it. That's a great analogy. So it's basically you're cleaning up the body, just like we need to clean up the cities. And when pollution, like in Salt Lake, you've seen our inversions here where it's just like a lid, and all the off gases just get trapped, and it gets really stinky, and it's respiratory infections go up. My neighbor's a pulmonologist, and so he said when we have inversions in the valley, he's got double the amount of patients. I mean, it's just he gets overwhelmed. So I think that's a really good analogy. And then when we look at the senescent cell, what happens? That's kind of at the end of the road when the cells are, because cells, it's like DNA. We're making photocopies of DNA, then cells are repopulating as other cells die and go into this autophagy state. But tell us about senescence and what that looks like.
So the senescent cells are like these really old cars that are still in your city driving around that just need to be taken to the dump, and nobody's doing it. And so there's mechanisms in the body that will see that those cars are driving around your city or, in your body, and they're producing way too much oxidation. They're producing way too much inflammation. And those cars are basically sent to the recycling factory. And so they've done some really interesting studies. And so let's call these cells zombie cells. That's what a lot of people will call senescent cells, or zombie cells. So as we get older, we get more and more accumulation of these zombie cells, and it leads to disease, inflammation, cancer, degenerative neurologic diseases, all the stuff that we really want to avoid. And so if we can clear up these senescent cells, the evidence in the research is dramatic at how we can slow aging, we can improve health, we can improve the function, we can improve our energy. I mean, it's just unbelievable what can transpire with that. Extend life. So how do we do that? How do we clear these senescent cells? And this is where autophagy plays in, is autophagy, and also the word senolytic, because lytic meaning it's something that's going to break it down. In science, often they use that word lytic, like osteolytic would be something that would be breaking bone down, right? So
Yep.
cyno stands for senescent cells, and lytic is lysing the senescent cells. So there are compounds, a lot of them are actually polyphenols from plants that we've heard about, like curcumin and quercetin. And there's the one that I'm most impressed with is called fisetin.
Yeah.
And I just wrote a great article about fisetin. I'll send you the link. And the research on fisetin is incredibly impressive as far as its ability to clear up senescent cells, decrease inflammation, improve brain function, improve the insulin sensitivity. It's really, it casts a broad net. And that's because all of the organs, your entire body, they all have this challenge with senescent cells. And the more you can improve that situation, the more you're going to decrease that pollution, and you're going to allow what energy you have to go all that much further.
Got it. And so that would be, I mean, the fisetin, that you're going to find that in like strawberries and blueberries, and where else can you find it in nature? Did you write that in your article?
Well, pine trees, there's a certain pine tree, I forget the name of it, but they can harvest it from that as well.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, strawberries is a common, but you do need a lot of strawberries to make a little bit of it. Fisetin is quite expensive. It's one of the more expensive ingredients that we use in our products. But it's something that I like in a liposomal. We have a product called Lucitol. And so it's a liposomal, and there's also a suppository version of it. But, you know, the other interesting thing about, you know, I don't know if the people that are watching have been looking at NAD much, but I know you're a big fan of NAD.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they haven't been educated on that.
Yep.
But what's interesting is if you supplement with NAD, if there was a negative thing that you could look at that, it would be the fact that the NAD is throwing a life preserver to your senescent cells. It's so beneficial to all your cells, but this is the one downside. So you don't want to be taking NAD during fasting periods. Like it probably wouldn't be the best thing to take at night before bed. It'd be better to take during the day. And also the NAD, you wouldn't want to take it every day. You know, you would want to pulse it would be better. And so whether it's an IV clinic or you're taking an NAD precursor or something like that, you know, take a few days off per week. It would be my recommendation. And this is where I think we really started to look into the fast track. Fast was where we're loading patients with NAD, and then we're switching them into this fasting autophagy. But we also, when we load people with NAD, we put a little bit of fisetin in with those products as well, just to try and curb that life preserver to the senescent cells.
Got it. And so the fast track, this is the 3 days, and tell us about what that looks like. And so the overall goal, and the reason why you'd ever want to fast, just so we go back to the beginning of the conversation, is you got to detox your city. You got to clean up the car. And sometimes those old zombie cars, the gas pedal is going to stick, and it's going to crash into other cars, and then it's going to multiply in damage. So fasting, the whole purpose is let's clean things up internally and have your cells really start expressing vitality again.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
And so the way that you're doing it now is, yeah, I mean, you look at Valter Longo's work, the 5-day fast. He's done some phenomenal things there, and Dr. Jason Fung, and there's others. Obviously, a lot of people talking about fasting, but I believe you and Dr. Pompa are like really have done something innovative, as you're talking to me about it as we were skiing. And so tell us about the fast track and why 3 days. You know, you can get the benefits of a 5-day fast in 3 days. And so, you know, tell us what that means and why it's important.
Well, so they've done some really impressive research where a 3 to 5 day fast done once a month for 3 months really seemed to have an incredible shift for a lot of disease processes. And so we wanted to look and see if a 3 day fast could get the same results as a 5 day fast. And obviously, you can look at a 2 day fast or a 24-hour fast. Um, and some of these longer fasts, a lot of people just aren't willing to do. There's a huge population of people that I think would probably, like, if I could say, hey, listen, if you were to do this once a week for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and all you needed to do was a 24-hour fast, which is like a lunch to lunch, but you had to do it every week, I think people might be more inclined to do that than to do a full 3 to 5 day fast, right?
Mm.
I just took a patient through a 3 day fast. I couldn't talk him into doing a longer fast. And this is a healthcare practitioner, and he couldn't tolerate it. Like I was, basically begging the guy to keep going.
Mhm.
But it just reinforces the resistance for a lot of people to actually do that. And it's difficult too, because if you've got a family or you have a social life, it's very difficult. So this was the idea, was to be able to get all the benefits of these longer fasts in a shorter period of time, or to accentuate this situation for sick people to get well.
Got it. Okay. And so what are some of the benefits that you're seeing? And how does the whole process work? And how do you get over the hunger? That's the biggest thing I hear when, Reagan, you want me to go how long without food? And what am I supposed to do? And what about the hunger? And yeah, so maybe we could address that, the big elephant in the room.
Yeah. Well, if you eat something, it's just that there's a signaling. So if we think about autophagy and senolytics and mitophagy as signaling, and you have a maximum 100%, whereas if you were just perfect and you're fasting, you're doing everything right, and then if you go in and you had some calories, you're going to maybe get 70% or something like that. It's still worth doing. So everybody kind of needs to find out where their tolerance is. Some of the tricks that I've learned is you could take some flaxseed or chia seed and grind it and put that like in a glass of water and drink it to kind of help satiate you a little bit.
Mhm.
A few macadamia nuts. I mean, some people that work, especially if they're using their brain a lot or if they're doing a lot of physical activity, it's very difficult to do that and do a complete fast. And so a little bit of cheating here and there might be necessary for you. You just have to understand that you're diminishing that signaling, and it's not the end of the world, because it's better that you're in it. I mean, Walter Longo looked at, even just if you're under 1,000 calories, that
Right.
there was still a tremendous amount of benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I like that process because sometimes, with patients, they come back dehydrated. Their insulin resistance is even worse when they've done fast the wrong way. And so there are certain populations, and I think a lot of us, when you first start fasting, one of the things I've discovered is you've got to work at it slowly, and you've got to realize where your body is and what your tolerance levels are. And I'm not surprised you said mac nuts, because you brought some great mac nuts from Hawaii on our ski trip. So
Yeah.
we were in a fasted state, but John just got like, here you go. Here's some mac nuts.
Yeah. With the chocolate in it.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was the best. Yeah.
Yeah. We had the Mac nuts with the stevia leaf powder, which there's a lot of healthy applications to that. And then I had some dark chocolate covered almonds. But when you're up skiing, I mean, you're burning calories. Those can come in handy.
Oh, big time. Yeah. So tasty. And so, so what would you say, like, as far as if somebody's ready to take on a fast, what you're saying is, I like the ground flaxseed, some ground chia, maybe some nuts, but what would constitute the moment when you stop the signaling and when you're keeping it going? Because I understand the idea that, even on a keto diet, you're still getting some of those signals out, but how do you know
Mhm.
when too much is too much?
Well, so protein's going to be your biggest enemy if you're trying to stay in your if you're trying to have maximum signaling for autophagy. So you want to avoid anything that's high protein, protein supplements. So as long as you're staying within, I mean, you could, early on in other fasts I've done, like, I've used like a steamed vegetable that I don't normally eat. And I think that's also important, is that, you develop a lot of food sensitivity. So it's better to try to pick something that you don't normally eat very often if you are going to kind of cheat in a fast as well. That's a little known secret.
Yeah.
But, Brussels sprouts or broccoli or, something maybe more rare on the vegetable side, but it's very low in protein would be a choice I would suggest.
Okay.
And then, of course, so you get through the fast, and just as important is, what do you do after the fast? Because now that you've cleaned everything up, the body then wants to replace all of those, because people don't always feel good during a fast. I mean, you're breaking down, right? So you don't expect, some people do just because they're lowering a lot of their inflammation from food sensitivities and gut issues. And so a percentage of people are going to feel really good while they're on a fast, and there's going to be some people that don't feel great. And after you stop the fast, you actually want to do the opposite, and you want to take in protein, and you want to create a signaling factor. And what starts to happen is you dump stem cells. If everything's been done right, now you want to stimulate stem cell production, but then you also want to provide a safety situation so that your stem cells survive. Because what happens is that and this will happen as good as you are, with as healthy as you are, there's a certain percentage of these stem cells that are released in circulation that will go senescent. So here this word is popping up again. And so these stem cells are very fragile. And so the environment really makes a big difference. And so there's substances that have been shown to improve stem cell survivability. And so we're using these substances post-fast, but we're also using them after we do, because, our clinic, like yours, we do regenerative medicine as well. And we'll do, bone marrow or exosomes or whatnot. And so we're doing these orthopedic treatments. And so the same principle would be for these people after they have a procedure, is how can we maintain the survivability of those stem cells? And so CoQ10 has actually had great efficacy, showing that it greatly minimizes the senescent stem cells becoming senescent. And then something called fucoidan, which is an extract of brown seaweed, which so we have it's a new product called FucoMax. I don't think I've even told you about this yet.
Oh, no, I can't keep up. It's amazing. So tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it's a fucoidan and very high level of CoQ10. CoQ10 is very poorly absorbed orally. So a CoQ10 suppository really makes a lot of sense. So, this product can be taken a couple of days or a week after, or even if you did a more extensive stem cell procedure, you could take it for a couple of weeks. But really, this is more of an optional aspect to the fast track. We start to get kind of fancy with this. And so we have a more simplistic protocol that doesn't include that, because the real core aspect of the fast track is NAD loading, senolytics while you're fasting, and then we're stimulating stem cells with higher protein intake. And then we do have a product called StemTOR, which has a certain leucine, which is the primary protein that stimulates mTOR, HMB, and also rhodiola. And these are substances that have been shown to really upregulate mTOR. So we have people take that. And so that's the core of, but there's another optional part of this that I'd like to chime in, which we talked a little bit about when we were on the lift, is that your microbiome, we've got to talk microbiome, because there's a whole nother story about your microbiome that plays into fasting. So if you think about this whole story with autophagy, the same thing happens with the microbiome. So all these bacteria are starved out, so they start to die out, and only the stronger ones will come back after you start to refeed and you start to provide the nutrients. And so this fasting can be very beneficial to your microbiome. This, in conjunction with supporting something called swarming, which is what melatonin does, especially in a high dose, is our strategy to supercharge the microbiome after a fast. And so that's where the Sandman would come into play.
Got it.
Right? So you're done fasting, you want to increase protein, you want to do something to upregulate swarming in the microbiome. So you do a super high dose of melatonin at the same time following that fast as well.
Got it. Okay. So that's genius. And the Sandman, just so you know, I've tried it for the last 2 nights, because it's a very high dose of melatonin. You guys probably, some of you have tried it, and those of you who do, there was some grogginess, and you coached me. You said just make it through, and actually I've done much better this time around than I did the first time. And I don't know if that's because I'm at the end of doing a epitalin cycle, so I've got my whole HPA axis rebuilt. I was going to ask you about that, but I don't have the grogginess. I slept 9 hours the first night. Last night I slept a good 8 hours. So
yeah,
feeling really solid.
Yeah. Well, so we've got the Super Sandman now, which is 450 milligrams of melatonin. And so for those people that are regulars with this regular Sandman, which is 200 milligrams, when they finish the fast, we'll actually have them pulse these 450. And sometimes we even go up to 600 or even 800 with some people. And I personally been experimenting with 400 to 800 milligrams for the last 6 weeks. And, it's funny, Ben Greenfield, I hope he doesn't mind me. I mean, he's an open book, but he texted me yesterday, and he's been, the last 30 days, he's been doing similar super high doses of melatonin. He's been really happy with how it's worked with his circadian rhythm. And I would, Dr. Pompa, when I was out there, I had his whole family doing some even higher doses. And it can be real interesting how it can not only detoxify your body, because they've shown that even with heavy metals in the brain, the melatonin can help clear that out, which might be part of the grogginess when you first start taking these higher doses. But there's also an aspect where your body just gets better at utilizing it as well.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a combination. Epitalin works right on the pineal gland, so I figured it'd be a good time to finish a cycle of that. I've been working on my epitalin for about 2 months, and so right at the end of that, I did the melatonin, and it's worked really, really well. It's been great. So the Sandman. So well done on those. And you're also, I mean, part of what your proprietary products use are terpenes. Almost everything that you have, we have a bunch of your products. And so I know a lot of our patients on here are using like some of the nasal sprays or even some of the suppositories, but you have this interesting administration. And then you also have terpenes that you put in those. And so can you talk about those just a little bit and why they're important?
Yeah, well, anybody that likes essential oils is going to be a fan of terpenes. So the terpenes are the fraction of the essential oils that give it fragrance. And so, for instance, lavender, the terpene is linalool. And so cannabis has, it's getting a lot of press for terpenes, because they think that a lot of the anti-cancer and antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties to cannabis owe themselves to not only the CBD and the THC, but also the terpenes, and that there's a play in the different terpenes when they're put together and how they can influence health in the body. So, so terpenes can be isolated, and I like terpenes for improving some of the CBD products, because a lot of times when you processed CBD, and hemp. Actually, we use a full spectrum on all of our NeuroDial products, but when you process it, you lose a lot of the terpenes. Even if you do it in the safe way to preserve it, there's still a loss. So adding them back in made a lot of sense, because there is such a synergy between these specific terpenes and the effectiveness of the CBD and the full spectrum hemp. The other reason that I have been a huge fan of the terpenes is when I use them for antimicrobial purposes, which you'll see in like the glutastat, and you start getting into limonene, and germinal, and some of these terpenes, you look them up and it's just like, they're incredible for, antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, and they're extremely safe for the most purpose, as far as utilizing them for human consumption.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things. You and I are both big on getting the nasal flora corrected, because that's where infections begin, and especially with coronavirus. I mean, that's where the majority of it's replicating, is right in the sinus cavities. And so every day, if you're doing some of these sprays, not only are you getting the oxytocin from the Zen, but you're also getting the glutathione from the glutastat, but you're getting these terpenes that come in, and it's like a great nasal flush. And I notice too in my breathing, in the morning before I sit down to do my meditation and breathing, I'll make sure I'll use the glutastat and the NAD, and that just clears my mind, and it also clears my sinuses, so I can breathe nice and deep and nice and easy, and I do some Wim Hof. It's been awesome. So appreciate your inventions.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think we had a talk. I think we were chatting about how big of a deal I'm finding it to be to have healthier sinuses, and that very few times do people in their life really go through and clean their sinuses. It's a filter. The nasal passage is a filter, and so there's things that start to grow in there. And I would think anybody that's dealing with any type of a neurological problem, or if they have a chronic inflammatory problem, or if they have a gut problem, should really get their sinuses checked for something called Marcons.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can go to your clinic, they can come to my clinic, or they can order the kit from us, reach out and we can send you the kit. But you have to get in there pretty deep. That's the trick. So not a lot of people are willing to push a Q-tip up there, but you send it into the lab, and then they'll tell you if you've got this Marcons infection. And so it's very, very difficult to get rid of. When I first started looking at Marcons and started treating it, I was shocked at the extreme high percentage of the patients coming in that had it. And when I cleared that one problem, how almost all of them felt better. And so the reason being is, when something's living in your sinuses, it's going to outgas into your brain.
Yeah.
Because there's a very clear connection there. And then it also will seed down into your gut. And in addition to that, a lot of these microbes produce biofilm. So you'll have a sticky residue in your sinuses that act like flypaper. So you'll be more susceptible to catching any type of airborne infection.
And so what's your main strategy for clearing those? Are you using the terpenes? Are you using a neti pot? I mean, what's the strategy?
So on a basic level, I'll have people do an antimicrobial nasal spray.
Yep.
For more aggressive protocols, I'll have them nebulize something that has some antimicrobials to it and nasal spray. And I'll even have them using a neti pot. And I've been a more and more of a fan of this Ayurvedic technique, where you take a bowl, like a salad bowl or something like that. You fill it with filtered water. And then what I'll have my patients do is put iodine in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then you literally dunk your entire face down into the water, and you inhale through your nose.
or you could go surfing and just get pounded by a wave. And then
That would be more fun. That would be definitely more fun.
so
But yeah,
I've never done that. I'll try it. So I get a bowl of, how is it, warm water? I mean, the filtered water, how, like, lukewarm, I'd imagine.
So what I do is, this is part of my morning ritual actually. And so what I'll do is I'll fill a bowl and I'll have it in my spare bedroom, my spare bathroom. And I'll put my face in it. I'll inhale through my nose, but then I'll let it run out outside of the bowl so that I can use that bowl for 2 or 3 treatments,
Yep.
you know, and then it just sits there next to my sink. But yeah, it's tricky because it defies logic to your brain. Like, you don't inhale while your face is submerged,
Right.
but you can do it. And as soon as you start to feel the water draining down into the throat, then, you know, just pull your face out of the water and move it over the side, and then the water will just drain out. It seems to get up higher. Like, even the neti pot doesn't seem to get way up into these, almost like these olfactory areas. I think there's almost an argument where you could do that. And then what I'll usually do is I'll do the Glutastat nasal spray after I do the bowl, you know, after things are flushed, then I'll put some antimicrobials up there.
Hey guys, had a couple questions come in, and we're getting short on time, so I just want to make sure we get this. This was asked about 10 minutes ago, but it was when you were talking about the fast. How strict of fast are you doing that? Can you drink water? That was a question that came up.
Yeah, I can answer that. So it kind of goes back to the signaling. How strong do you want to signal this cleaning and clearing? And so if you don't eat at all is best. And if you eat some, don't eat protein. And you know, that may be something that you're not normally eating, right? Like, you could steam a vegetable and you've actually absolutely have to eat something, have a few bites of that, and see if you can reset yourself. That would be my best suggestion.
And then on fluids and hydration, how, you know, I mean, we always tell people you got to stay hydrated, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know some people are doing dry fasts. I haven't tried that myself. But yeah, I definitely suggest a lot of hydration, because that can actually curb the appetite pretty well as well.
Great. So for Susan, that would be definitely want to have some water, unless you're, like, I would say, veteran expert. Maybe you can start doing the dry fasting, but definitely don't recommend it to this audience. And then let's see, does drinking juiced veggies and fruit? Okay. So that was from Diane on the fast.
Yeah. So again, it's all signaling. So it's depending on, you know, if it's under 1,000 calories, the research shows that you're still going to get a fair amount of cellular cleaning and autophagy. So, but if it's protein, it's going to be your worst enemy when you're fasting. So don't do anything that has protein, no meat, you know, no vegetables that are high in protein, like soy.
Yeah.
Asparagus.
Mm-hmm.
So you could probably get away with maybe like some celery juice, something like that.
Right. You know, and there's a lot of people that teach these juice fasts, you know, and some people go for a month or two just with a juice fast. And there's a lot of, you know, great benefit with that, but that's not really what we're talking about today. But that is a whole nother podcast, I think.
Right, yeah. And that's where, please get medical advice before you do it. I've had people come on the other end and they have gastroparesis, and it's just they've shut down their entire system. So I'm sure you see it too, Dr. Lawrence. So
yeah.
So yeah, make sure you're getting some advice on this. I love what you've created. And so maybe, Cade, what other questions do we have? And then I want to talk about the nuts and bolts and how people can do this 3-day, the fast track fast. Is that what it's called?
Awesome.
The fast track.
Yep.
I don't know what this is referring to, but had a question on what does the iodine do? I think it was in regards to
That's the nasal bowl, cleaning out the nasal cavity.
There's antimicrobial properties. It's like when you go to the doctor and they do surgery, they'll put iodine on your skin.
Yep.
So we're really trying to, kill off bad critters in the sinuses.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Love it.
I think we answered all the questions coming in. I'll let you guys wrap it up.
Well, yeah, I always learn so much, Dr. Lawrence. This is his third time being on the show, and so really appreciate you joining us today. But and you've always got new things. I mean, I always want to talk about the old things, and you're like, no, Reagan, this is it's been a week since we spoke, and I got brand new things that we need to cover. So
That's old news.
Yeah, that's what that was like 2 weeks ago, Reagan. That was so last week. So
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Fast Track Fast, because that's kind of your new project right now, and you've seen amazing results with your patients. And so let's just get into the nuts and bolts of that while we finish up, if you don't mind.
No, it can be confusing. I mean, I can only imagine someone listening to this podcast and then trying to say, well, what does this mean? How do I do this? We have it written out at and I'll provide that to you. So I would suggest that anybody that's interested in this should contact you, and you can provide a link, to the protocol. And
Beautiful.
basically there's products that come with this, and it's a 3-phase protocol. So it can be done in 2 days or 3 days. So it would be 2 days, 2 days, 2 days, or 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, right? So the phase 1 is NAD loading. And so we have a liquid liposomal NAD, or we have a suppository. And then phase 2 is Lucitol. So it's the Physitin. And so this is the senolytic, and you do this while you're fasting. And then phase 3 is the refeeding. So on your own, you have more protein. We're using the perfect aminos or Kion aminos. My Ben's Kion aminos are good, but they're essential amino acids. They're highly absorbable. So we have you taking 15 to 20 grams of that afterwards for a few days. And then there's the Stemtor. And then of course we talked about the Sandman and the Fuco stem, that all could be taken post. And so we'll provide an article that kind of gets into the weeds about all of it. And then we'll provide a very quick sheet that just outlines the basic protocol for them and a couple of options. And so that's what I would suggest, is anybody reach out to you, and I'll give those to you, and you can just provide those to them.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that would be great, because I think it's something that, fasting, once a week, I try to do more of a caloric restriction diet, 500 to 1,000 calories. And I've encouraged my patients to do that. And then a couple times a year in Chinese medicine, in the spring and in the fall, is when you want to do a complete cleanse and detox. So, coming up in March, we'll be doing a group detox, and this would be a great time to introduce this to everybody in about a month from now.
Well, Reagan, one thing that maybe is important for folks to know is that the 2 day, which is the basic protocol, that I'll have a lot of patients do weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll do the full 3-day fast once a month for 3 months straight. But in between, all they're doing is 2 days of NAD loading. And then when they take the Lucitol, the Physitin, for the 2 days afterwards, they're just going to do a lunch to lunch fast, which is super simple. So once a week, you're doing a lunch to lunch. And then afterwards, you're increasing your protein intake a little bit. So it's really easy to do that 2-day protocol. And we like in a more aggressive situation, if it's someone that we're really looking to make some strong changes with them from a health standpoint, we'll encourage that 2-day, and then the more aggressive 3-day fast, again, once a month for 3 months, based on Valter Longo's work.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I think this would be great. This year I've been really diving into insulin resistance and seeing that being like if we could remove one thing from our patients and it was insulin resistance, we would cure 1,000 diseases. And so fasting, this could be one of the quickest ways of getting rid of some of that insulin resistance as we get your body more attuned metabolically, because it's a
Definitely.
metabolic shift that takes place. So I love this.
Yeah.
So just in closing, we've got just a few minutes here, but what's the most fascinating thing in medicine right now to you? What do you, I mean, is it fasting, or is there other things right now that what's new, what's cooking in Dr. Lawrence's brain right now?
Wow. There's so much, it's like, this protocol really involves, I think, some of the hottest topics out there, NAD, fasting, autophagy, mitophagy, stem cell, regenerative medicine, it's all kind of encapsulated into this one protocol. So I'm incredibly excited about that in that sense. You know, as far as like outside of that, we're in the middle of this pandemic, right? And it's like, there's craziness. And I know a lot of people are really, they have a lot of high hopes for the current direction that the country's going from the medical standpoint. But I really think therapeutics are going to be an interesting option for pursuit, because I don't see that happening. I don't see government funding therapeutics for COVID, and I think that is going to change soon, because I think they're going to find that those are going to be more needed than what they thought. So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say the preliminary reports on the vaccine shows it's more dangerous than getting the virus right now. I mean, it's still early on, so I agree. Like therapeutics, we've got to start looking at things differently. And the autoimmunity, I mean, it's something you and I talked about, but we've treated Lyme for years. You've experienced Lyme yourself. We've treated a lot of Epstein-Barr, a lot of these viral loads, and now we've got coronavirus, which is starting to manifest as an autoimmune condition. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's a difficult virus for anybody. I had it in a year before, it was, I guess, the Christmas of 2000 or 2019. And, I picked it up in Hawaii, and, it was a really bad flu for me, but I'm a relatively healthy person. So for people that aren't healthy, they're going to potentially get more hurt. And that can manifest itself with leaving the body with some permanent damage that you might have to deal with. So I would say that my biggest advice would be melatonin with regards to that, because it's very protective to the body. And this is my personal strategy: is I'm taking high doses of melatonin. And I was even, when I was in Park City last time, I actually stayed with someone that wound up and had COVID, and I didn't catch it. And I had some pretty close contact. So, I attribute that to me taking high doses of melatonin and just having a really strong immune system.
Yeah. Okay. And that's if you guys go back and listen to the previous show that John was on, and I don't know if you can provide a link, but you guys can learn all about the cool melatonin pathways and what it does. And that one was very enlightening. So I think that's great. I think there's, I think if we all just take a step back, Dr. Lawrence, you're one of the big thinkers in the healthcare industry, somebody who's always moving the needle forward and in progressing things. And so I really appreciate the work you've done. Appreciate everything you've shared with us today. It's been, as always, incredibly enlightening. And I think as a society, first and foremost, we need to take responsibility for our own health. And with some of the protocols you've created, it's easier than ever to do that. And so, I couldn't agree more. So thanks for being on today. Any final words before we close up?
There's a mirror on this. I can actually see which cars are driving in front of your, are you at your clinic?
I'm at Go Wellness at the teaching center. What can you see?
Cool. Oh, you told me about this.
Yeah,
Wow.
you got to come. Yeah.
We got to do a class there,
Yes,
like a
sir.
master class.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be out there towards the beginning of March. I'm actually speaking at one of Pompa's events. So maybe we could plan something
Beautiful.
around that time.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yep. That'll be great.
Sounds good. Well, we'll get on that here in the next week or two and see if we can put something on the books.
It'd be great. Awesome.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much, Kate. Any final words? We got a couple announcements and then we'll close up.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Dr. John Lawrence. Amazing show as usual. Nice work, Reagan. And so everybody, make sure you are registered for the Health Accelerator Challenges. That's going to be next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Go to acueastwest.com/hack, HAC. As well as in the notes here, you can see a few of the links to all the protocols, the Fast Track Fast. Make sure you get there. That is advancedbiomecorp.com/go wellness. So you can learn a lot more about Dr. John's protocols and everything he was talking about. Or just email Ann if that's easier. Ann.marked@gowellness.com. Hopefully you guys have all those details, and that's all in the notes. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. John. Amazing show.
Welcome. My pleasure.
And we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. See y'all.
Bye-bye.